Free League Publishing creates a lot of great games, a number of them being related to adaptations to existing intellectual properties such as Middle-earth through the One Ring and Lord of the Rings role-playing games, and the Alien and Blade Runner RPGs. They do, however, have a number of in-house developed games that put themselves on the map in the RPG production realm. Coriolis was one of their first forays into the tabletop RPGs, and Coriolis The Great Dark is their latest iteration of the universe they created, and currently in a Kickstarter campaign. I'm new to this world, but had always been interested in it, and it wasn't until the tagline, inspired by 19th century exploration, deep sea diving, and pulp archaeology, that I read, that I was hooked and pledged to this Kickstarter. Let's take a quick look at the just released Quickstart rules from the Kickstarter campaign, with the full core rules and campaign box to be released later this year after the Kickstarter ends. Of course, things can change as the Kickstarter and further development continues, so I'll be redoing a more in-depth video of the core rules and the game when it releases. The Quickstart rules PDF comes in at a hefty 88 pages, comprising of condensed rules, a pre-made adventure, and accompanying pre-generated player characters. The art, the pages, the typeface, and colors really bring out that exploratory feel as seen in a lot of the mid-19th and early 20th century works. Unlike most science fiction or even a steampunk world set in space, this has more of that Franklin, Shackleton, or Lawrence of Arabia expedition feel to it. Inspired by these same 19th century explorers, elements of deep-sea diving and pulp archaeology, think Indiana Jones, are core elements of the game. This is a role-playing game about exploration and hope. Chapter 1 introduces us to the universe as presented in Coriolis, and where and what point the play of the Great Dark is to be set. At the edge of known space, the survivors of a dying civilization have made their haven. In a hollowed-out asteroid they've named Ship City, the brave and the foolish are plotting their next venture into the Great Dark, arguing about what secrets lay hidden in the dark space, praying for a brighter future, bragging and backstabbing to get on board the next great ship expedition into the unknown. You are one of those fools and heroes, ruin delvers, artifact scavengers, or mystery hunters, depending on who you ask. You are the agents of the exclusive Explorers Guild, and your job is to go where the few others dare. You seek the enigmatic ruins of the Lost Horizon to solve its mysteries and help your city and your people survive. Ship City is dying, but you and your fellow explorers can find a way forward. This is your mission, this is your destiny, your creed. Explore or perish. The rest of the introductory chapter highlights some history of Ship City, of the great ships used for space travel, and the ruins you're meant to explore, of the Blight, a plague with origins in the ruins themselves, sowing fear and doubt in every person, but also corruption of physical structures, mutations in biology, and eventually causing death. Blight is a force you cannot escape and is a constant threat to you, and your only hope is to resist it for as long as you can and survive. To continue with that exploratory feel of the 19th century, and like a canary for coal miners, birds are an explorer's priceless companion. Where the Blight brings despair, the birds bring hope. The birds, or Garuda, mitigate the effects of Blight, sometimes eliminating it altogether. What's a good exploration game without some form or function of guilds? The Quickstart presents 6 such major guilds, with some mention of lesser players in this arena. The Navigators Guild, the Machinists, the Gardeners, and the Coriolites, the Black Toad, and the last and newest of the guilds, the Explorers, are all highlighted in this Quickstart section. Chapter 2 is here where the basic rules are presented, and for the most part are standard for any tabletop role-playing game system. Coriolis is based and adapted on Free League's Year Zero engine and is simple and easy to grasp and understand by new players and new game masters. Coriolis uses a pool of D6 dice, and although there are going to be proprietary dice specific for the game, any normal D6 dice can be used. Take note, maybe using different colors for the base dice versus the gear dice. Time is measured in rounds equaling 10 seconds, stretch equaling 15 minutes, and a shift equaling 6 hours. Examples of what can be accomplished are given in each of the tables here. Players take on the role of the explorer, and each explorer has 6 core attributes, each rated on a scale of 2 to 6, with the higher score being the better. We won't go on, there is no character creation in this quick start, as you'll be using pre-generated rules. Strength, agility, logic, perception, insight, and empathy are the core attributes. Health, hope, and heart represents how much player can get physical damage, how much despair they can take, and how much blight you can take. Health is dependent on strength and agility, hope is dependent on logic and empathy, and heart is dependent on insight and perception. Each character will have specific talents, each describing special skills or traits, as such can be used with different attributes depending on the situation. Quirks are little peculiar aspects of your explorer that you can use to RP during play, but as highlighted will impact how much experience you'll gain when the full rule set is released. As mentioned before, the bird is an explorer's best friend. The bird isn't individual to the explorer, but to the group as a whole, so consider it a shared resource. When the full rules are released, the group or party will be able to further develop the bird with new abilities using experience points. We'll be interested to see how that works. The rest of the Explorer section highlights equipment carried, with encumbrance matching strength plus 6. Only items written down in your Explorer's inventory add to encumbrance. An Explorer can have up to 3 weapons at hand, and interestingly enough, these don't count towards your encumbrance. Armor, including a helmet, is recorded like weapons, and again, does not count towards encumbrance. Ammunition is tracked not individually but in bulk, via magazines for slug weapons or batteries for energy weapons. We'll cover more on that a little bit later. Supply is another element that brings out the exploration into the fringes of known space and is integral in bringing out that look and feel of the game. Supply is tracked as a group, with a higher rating meaning more supplies. It's abstract, so no need to bring things into minute detail, and supplies are important when delving. One supply unit is normally used per marker of depth traveled. Various items like oxygen bottles, water casks, batteries, rations, and so on, unlike armor and weapons, do count towards your encumbrance. 4 points of supply equal 1 encumbrance value. And again, you don't need to mark down the specific amounts of water casks and bottles, the points represent those. The gameplay is very similar to other Year Zero engine games where you make rolls using the dice and can opt to push a roll looking for more successes. Successes are attained by rolling a 6 on any of the 6-sided dice that you rolled, with more 6s granting a better outcome or result. How many dice are to be rolled initially is dependent on why the roll is being actioned in the first place. Once an attribute is associated, you grab as many d6 equaling the value of the attribute. These dice are called your base dice. If you have any tools that can be used for the chosen action, you get to add further d6s or gear dice to that roll, equal to the value listed for that tool. You then roll the dice together and count any 6s rolled. Your actions succeed as long as you roll 1 6, or this icon symbol on the custom dice. Otherwise, you fail. Rolling more 6s grants you a better outcome, and it could mean finding more information that would normally be found if you were searching for something, or in combat or conflict, more damage or extra injury effects. Pushing rolls comes with its disadvantages as it increases your chance to lose hope points if you roll a 1, or damaging or destroying your gear if you also roll a 1 on your gear dice. Hope can be given to other players in the exploration party, especially if they're close to losing it and succumbing to despair. When players push rolls and are needing to lose hope, you can opt for your explorer to lose hope instead of the player who made the push roll. You lose the 1 point of hope plus any that the explorer rolled during the push roll. There's no difficulty setting for rolls in this game, as you're basically only supposed to roll if the situation is difficult than normal anyway. If in the event that the GM wants to impose some form of advantage or disadvantage, they would add or subtract the base dice rolled. You always get a chance to roll at least 1 dice no matter how low an attribute is or disadvantageous the roll is. Others can help on a roll and must be declared before any roll is made. When an explorer or NPC helps another, you add an extra base dice. Up to 3 explorers or NPCs can help an action roll, adding 3 base dice. This rule also applies to the NPCs. I really like this feature, and already it brings out the group camaraderie you see during an exploration back in the 19th century. Like other Year Zero games, there may be time when a roll is opposed. In this case, you and the opponent rolls, and whoever attains the most successes succeeds. Fairly self-explanatory. Group rolls are also a nice little feature that I think helps speed up the game. If, for instance, you're required to climb a tall cliff face of a crumbling asteroid, you choose as a group the best explorer with the most base dice and gear associated for the task you're trying to roll for. Of course, the roll can be helped by up to 3 explorers as well as being pushed. But note, there are no re-rolls and not everyone is to roll. I like this feature, and I think it again brings out that we're all in this together feel of an exploration team. Chapter 3 goes over conflicts and combat. Cards are used to differentiate initiative order ranging from 1 to 10, and participants go in order of lowest to highest. Once the round is over, you draw cards again, mixing the order of who goes next each round. There is a note on the surprise round and exchanging initiatives, but we won't touch that here. Actions available in Combat are listed here and are fairly self-explanatory. You get to perform 1 action per round on your turn. Some actions, as in reactions, are performed on the opponent's turn. They are blocking and dodging, and it uses your action in that round. This means if you decided to use your action for anything else, you won't be able to react to dodge or block a blow. There are a number of free actions that are listed here and don't count towards using your 1 action, like pulling a weapon, for instance. Like other Year Zero engine games, combat is more focused on theater of the mind play and is therefore separated into zones, those being engage, close combat, short, medium, long, and extreme. We won't go into much detail here, but in quickly scanning this section, combat can be fast and extremely deadly, considering you're not only using hand-to-hand close combat, but also guns and energy weapons with varying rates of fire and damage output. Speaking of which, damage is listed for the weapon used, plus any 6s or icons rolled, so your damage output could be quite huge, especially if you push the roll. Aside from that, if the damage equals or exceeds the crit threshold of the weapon, you critically injure your target. The table on page 30 and 31 lists what can happen, and you or the DM rolls a d66. There's some real nice critical injuries listed, and some that are long to recover from or not at all. Some you are killed instantly. This is deadly. Social conflict is where you and your exploration party are trying to convince or speak with NPCs to gain their favor or other favorable outcome where combat isn't the answer. Think negotiating a contract or convincing a guard to let you pass or some other social dialogue that you're trying to gain the advantage for. Rules are presented, and depending on the roleplay of the characters and what negotiating position you're in, the GM can decide what advantages or disadvantages your party has in the social conflict. Not only are there physical damage, but your explorer can suffer mental damage as well, represented as stated earlier by your hope score. Suffering despair can lower your hope in a number of ways, by pushing rolls and rolling a 1, for instance, horror from some critters or creatures you encounter, and stressful situations as deemed appropriate by the GM. When your hope reaches 0, you're broken and suffer some form of critical mental injury. The table on page 34 highlights what those are, and the GM or player rolls a d66 to see which injury they have succumbed to mentally. 66 is, well, heart-stopping. Others in your party can help you recover hope by rolling empathy. You recover hope equal to the amount of 6s or icons rolled. You can also recover hope on your own, especially if no one around you is near, gaining 1 hope point after each shift has passed. Health and hope can be recovered at the same time. There are some considerations, however, when you're affected by and not broken by blight. What's a good exploratory game without hazards? Fire, explosions, falling are all presented here, and I'm going to assume there will be more listed in the core rulebook. But let's assume that hazards such as drowning, suffocation, exposure to the cold vacuum of space will all be on the table. Heart and blight, as explained before, blight is ever present in the Great Dark, and accumulation of or exposure to blight reduces the explorer's heart value. Explorers suffer blight when delving, attacks from specific creatures, and certain locations where blight is heavily concentrated. There are specific suits that can help protect you, but may or may not work all the time. When your heart value reaches 0, you are broken by blight. When broken by blight, you can't perform any action rolls. Also, you may manifest deadly blight manifestations. Pages 38 and 39 list what those can be, and once again, you roll a d66 to find the result. For instance, rolling a 66 on this table is as if you winked out of existence and memory. Nobody knows you ever existed. You recover blight by getting help from others and they physically sanitize you while you're broken by blight, or on your own, recovering 1 point of blight, or heart, after a shift has passed, as long as you're in a blight-free area, or in a base or forward camp during your delve. A short couple of pages go over the creatures and adversaries, and in this Quickstart book, the adventure covers what those specifically would be for the adventure. Next up in Chapter 4 is the Delve. This is the mechanics of the exploration of the game. It's what we're here for. Searching the dark recesses of space, of ruins long since destroyed and buried, and artifacts yet to be discovered. During a delve, explorers have to overcome the ever-presence of blight, strange mysteries they begin to unravel, and engaging incomprehensible foes. Each delve is categorized by what's called class and depth. Classes range from 0 to class 3, and is listed here what those are. 0 being the most common and easiest, while class 3 is outright foolish, and the utmost of extreme caution should be considered. Only fools would venture on such a delve. Depth of a delve is measured in markers, representing the depth or distances measured by earlier explorers, or you as a group marking a new delve for future explorers themselves. Each marker depth takes about 1 stretch of time to complete. Explorers take up different roles during a delve, those being Delver, Scout, Burrow, and Guard. Multiple roles can be taken up if you don't have the numbers in your party to select individually. A note about the bird. Generally, the Scout is the most common companion to the bird, but everyone in the party can command it. Prior to delving and after the roles have been assigned, time to pack up your supplies. Every 4 points of supply equals 1 item roll in an explorer's sheet. 30 to 60 points is the typical range of points needed for supplies. Therefore, you're looking at needing anywhere between 2 to 3 lines for each explorer to mark down on their sheet. Every time you spend up to 4 points of supplies, remove a line from one of the characters, and it's the group's choice of who that will be. Everyone is carrying something for the party, not just for yourself. If the group runs out of supplies, it's time to turn around. Each time the explorers venture 1 marker without spending a point of supply, they risk taking damage, despair, or even blight. The table on page 44 lists all the ways to reduce your supply. I'm excited to try this out at the table, and the idea of forward planning and resource management is integral to get that exploration feel, but without being laborious and tracking every minute detail, as it's just a number in a pool representing all the supplies needed. There's rules presented here about scanning the ruins for what you're exploring beforehand, gathering information vital to the success of a delve. A number of tools are available for the explorers to help to use to garner more information. You can also send the bird to scan for areas of blight, and so on. There's a nice little insert here highlighting the different possible manifestations of blight, like frost, dust, or ice that would signal to your players that blight is present. Page 48 gives a nice little table called the Delve in Short. Pack your equipment and supplies. Scan the ruin. Send forth the bird to scan for blight. The Delver roll leads the way. If successful, the delve progresses the same number of markers as the roll successes. Decrease the supply by the same amount. Roll for each roll is exposed to an event. Repeat the process deeper as you go into the abyss. For those familiar and have played the One Ring RPG, you'll note that the process is very similar to that of the journey mechanics for that game. Chapter 4 ends with a little highlight of the bird and its abilities and what it can do for your exploring party. Its abilities are not unlimited, and it has energy pool equaling 3 points. Some abilities use none, some use a lot of energy. It recovers energy after each shift. Note, the bird is not the only sure way to scan for blight, and it does it perfectly well. Again, matching that canary in the coal mine tag we've all given it. Chapter 5 and starts on page 51, and it is the pre-made adventure for use in this Quickstart rules. I'm not going to go over the adventure line by line. That's not the intent of this video. The adventure or exploration is well laid out, providing the GM with a background, the situation, the mission, the outpost where the delve will begin. The delve itself has maps and artifacts listed to be discovered and what happens after the exploration adventure is over. The maps are gorgeous and easy to read. Handouts are provided. There are 4 pre-generated explorers for characters to play, plus the bird. Also presented is the crew sheet log. So far, I am impressed with the look and feel of the game, never having played the early iterations of it and coming in like an explorer with some fresh new eyes. The quality of the writing, the artwork by Martin Grip, and the other aesthetic of the book is superb. What else can be expected from Free League? The Year Zero engine feels comfortable here and it's not out of place and almost brings out a rules-light feel to it. Not much to have to remember as game master or as player to play the game, which is very nice, all the while bringing out that mystery and danger of exploring unknown worlds in the ancient ruins. If you haven't, consider checking out the Kickstarter still ongoing as of the writing of this video. We're on day 3 of the campaign with 20 more days to go, with the game reaching over $500,000 US so far. I sure hope we'll reach the solo play rules stretch mark, which is the last, and works out to be another 100,000 K. Let me know what you think about the game as I present it, and if you like this video and the other content on my channel, please like, comment, share, and consider subscribing to help this channel grow. I'm Ryan of the North. Thank you for watching.